Hello children, welcome to this JEE crash course. The chapter we are discussing now is electric charges, fields, potentials and capacitors. We are familiar with the basic concepts, we did the synopsis, we understood the ideas and we are familiar with the equations as well. Now it's the time to solve a couple of problems to get good hold on them. Example number 1. Assume three concentric conducting spheres where charges q1 and q2 have been placed on the inner and outer sphere, whereas middle sphere has been earthed. Find the charge on the outer surface of the middle spherical conductor. Okay. So the construction can be shown like this. This is the inner sphere, this is the middle sphere and this is the outer sphere. And the radii are R1, R2 and R3 respectively. And the charges Q1 and Q2 are given to the inner and the outer conductors. And the middle is grounded. Let us assume that a charge, some amount of charge appears on the inner conductor. So you notice that the charge before the earthing took place was something like this, minus q1 plus q1. The induced charges appeared here, and I am going to write a charge of q here, a charge of q on the outer surface after the grounding takes place. So this is the charge distribution, q1 minus q1 plus q and q2. Now the potential of the middle conductor is 0. Why is it 0? Because it is grounded conductor. Potential of the middle conductor is because of potential due to the inner conductor, potential due to the middle conductor, plus potential due to the outer conductor. These three add to 0. Remember, this is the net potential, which is 0. Potential due to the inner conductor is K, Q1 divided by R2. Potential due to the inner conductor at the site of middle conductor, plus Q minus Q1 divided by R2. That's the charge on the middle conductor, plus Q2 divided by R3. These three add to 0. And upon simplification we get Q is equal to minus R2 by R3 times Q. So this is the charge on the outer surface of the middle conductor. Notice that the concept we have used is the net potential of a grounded conductor is 0. Also remember, a grounded conductor does not necessarily carry 0 charge. That's a very important concept to be kept in mind. So what is our answer? The answer is the charge on this is R2 by R3 into Q2. If I leave out the sign, then A is our correct answer. The charge on the outer surface of the inner conductor, Q, is R2 by R3 into Q2. Example 2. Three concentric metallic spheres A, B, C have radii A, B and C, and A is of course less than B, less than C, and the surface charge densities on them are sigma, minus sigma and sigma respectively. The values of VA and VB, potentials of A and B are okay. So the construction can be shown like this. This is of radius A, this is of radius B and this is of radius C. Now their surface charge densities are sigma, minus sigma and sigma respectively. The question is potential of A, potential of B and potential of C. Alright. Potential of A is because of its own charge and the other charges. What is it? This is K, and I can write the charge as charge density into area. So 4 pi into A square divided by A, minus sigma into 4 pi B square, that's the charge on the middle conductor, divided by B, plus sigma into 4 pi C square divided by C. These three add to give the potential of the conductor A. And this simplifies to sigma divided by epsilon naught A minus B plus C. That's the potential of the conductor A. Potential of the conductor B. This is K into sigma into 4 pi A square divided by B. That's the potential of the conductor B because of A. Potential of the conductor B because of its own charge, sigma into 4 pi B square divided by B, plus sigma into 4 pi C square divided by C. That gives me sigma by epsilon naught A square by B minus B plus C. So potential of the conductor A is sigma by epsilon naught A minus B plus C. That due to B is A sigma by epsilon naught A square by B minus B plus C. So what is our correct choice? A is our correct choice. Example 3. Two equal negative charges minus q each are fixed at points 0, minus A and 0A on y-axis. A positive charge q is released from rest at the position 2A on the x-axis. So the charge q will execute SHM, move to the origin and remain at rest, move to infinity, execute oscillatory but non-SHM motion. The construction can be shown like this. This is y-axis and here is x-axis, and the charges are placed like this. This is at this is minus q and this is placed at A, and another minus q is placed at distance minus A from the origin, and at a distance 2A another charge plus q is released. So if you observe, this charge experiences two forces along these directions, and these two forces are equal in magnitude. And if I resolve them into components, I notice these two components cancel, the perpendicular components cancel, and the axial components remain. Thus, this charge starts accelerating under the influence of the axial force. So it starts moving, it comes to the origin but does not stop there because of the momentum it has gained. It overshoots that position, goes to the other side. But when it is here, clearly the force it experiences is opposite in direction. So it is a retarded motion now. Goes to the other extreme position, stops, and it starts oscillating. And this is basically an oscillatory motion. But the question is whether it is SHM or not. Notice that the particle is traveling from a distance 2A, which is far as compared to the actual separation of the charge from the origin, that is the charges which are fixed are close to each other, and therefore it is a non-simple harmonic motion. It is a non-simple harmonic motion. So it is an oscillatory motion but non-SHM. This can be shown mathematically, but just remember that in any SHM for that matter, the small distance approximation should be applicable. Any oscillatory motion is SHM provided the amplitude of oscillation is small, but in this case it is not. Next one, medium of dielectric constant K and of specific gravity 2, two identically charged spheres are suspended from a fixed point by threads of equal lengths. The angle between them is 90 degree. In another medium of unknown dielectric constant K1 and specific gravity 4, the angle between them becomes 120 degree. If density of material of the spheres is 8 gram per cc, then the value of K1 is. Okay. So the construction can be shown like this. Suspended, it's basically a suspended sphere problem. The charged conductors can be shown like this. The angle between them is 90 degree. First of all, the angle between them is 90 degree. And in the second case, the angle between them becomes 120 degree. The angle between them becomes 120 degree. So this angle, half angle, is 45 degree in the first case and it is 60 degree in the second case. So now what are all the forces? The forces are, this is T. So you have T cos 45 and this is mg. This is T sin 45 and this is electrostatic force. And clearly you have F is equal to mg tan theta, or I should write mg dash tan theta, because there is an upward force. Which upward force? That is up thrust. So I will write the first equation as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q1 q2 divided by epsilon r1 into separation square. The separation between them is, say, some r. What is that r? R is equal to L sin 45 into 2, isn't it? If you look at this distance, this is L sin 45. So I will have 2L sin 45 whole square. This is equal to its weight. The weight is volume into density minus density of the liquid into G. This is equation number 1. And in the second case, what do we have? We have 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught epsilon r2 q1 q2 divided by, what is the new separation? 2L sin 60 whole square. This is equal to, again, volume into density of the solid minus density of the liquid into G. This is a different liquid. So I have two equations. If I divide one by the other, notice I am writing that equation one more time. The first equation, q1 q2 divided by 2L sin 45 whole square is equal to V into rho minus sigma of liquid into G. This is my equation 2, this is my equation 1. So if I divide equation 1 by 2, what do I get? I get epsilon r 2 divided by epsilon r1 is into, we have sin 60 square divided by sin 45 square is equal to rho minus density of liquid, rho minus rho dash of liquid. So now we can substitute everything into this equation and get the value of epsilon r2, that is nothing but K2. And upon simplification, I am leaving the calculations to you. Upon simplification, you will notice that this turns out to be K by root 3. So K by root 3 is your answer. Next one. A thin copper ring of radius A is charged with q units of charge. An electron is placed at the center of the copper ring. If the electron is displaced a little, it will have a frequency of. Okay. So the construction can be represented this way. There is a ring and this ring carries a charge q. Electron is placed at the center. And this ring is of radius r. Suppose the radius is a, is given as a, and I have displaced it by a small distance x. Now what are all the forces acting? The force E is nothing but, you know, E into E. The electric field at a point on the axis is given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q into x divided by r square plus x square to the power 3 by 2. R is A here. So, into E. This is the force. And we can write it as minus ma, as this is a restoring force. So, I will write it as acceleration just to highlight the difference between these two. So, acceleration is equal to minus 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught m into q into e into x divided by a cube for small x. For small x, a square plus x square to the power of 3 by 2 can be written as a square to the power of 3 by 2, that is a cube. So, if you look at it, this is of the form minus omega square x. That means this entire term is nothing but omega square. So, once the value of omega square is known, you can find out the time period by 2 pi by omega, or frequency of oscillation. Omega can be found out here, which is f can be found out, which is given by 1 by 2 pi, right? Omega divided by 2 pi. So, you can substitute here and it becomes as omega square is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught QE divided by MA cube. We get the frequency of oscillation as 1 by 2 pi square root of QE divided by 4 pi epsilon naught MA cube. That's the frequency of oscillation, and that corresponds to which option? It corresponds to option A. Example 6. A sphere carrying a charge of 0.01 coulomb is kept at rest without falling down, touching a wall by applying an electric field of 100 Newton per coulomb. If the coefficient of friction between the sphere and the wall is 0.2, the weight of the sphere is. Okay. So, the construction can be shown like this. A sphere is kept at rest, assuming sufficient area of contact. We can show it like this. What are all the forces? mg is one force, and of course n is along this direction, and I apply an electric force QE, and there is force of friction. So, in order that the system is in equilibrium, I can write mg is equal to f. F is equal to mu n and n is equal to QE. Therefore, I can write mg is equal to mu into QE. From the diagram you notice n and q are equal to each other. So, what are we supposed to find out? The weight is equal to mu into q into E. Do we know all the details? Yes. The coefficient of friction is 0.2 and the charge is 0.01 into 100, that gives us 0.2 Newton. Therefore, the weight of the object is, or the sphere is 0.2 Newtons. D is our correct choice. Example 7. A non-conducting ring of radius 0.5 meter carries a total charge of 1.11 into 10 to the power of minus 10 coulomb distributed non-uniformly in its circumference, producing an electric field E everywhere in space. The value of integral minus CdL from infinity to 0 is L is equal to 0 being the center of the ring. So, if you look at it, if you understand what he is trying to calculate, it becomes a pretty easy problem. E dot dr. This is nothing but the potential. If it is calculated from infinity to a particular point P, this integral E dot dr is nothing but the potential at a point. So what is he asking for? He is asking for the potential at the center of a ring. Charge on the ring is q, radius is r, therefore the potential at the center of the ring is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q divided by r. Very simple. So it is 9 into 10 to the power of 9 into 1.11 into 10 to the power of minus 10 whole divided by r, 0.5 meter, and this becomes how much? You can simplify it further. This becomes 2 volt. You can simplify it further to get answer as 2 volts. So A is our correct choice. Example 8. Two positive charges 12 microcoulomb and 18 microcoulomb are 10 centimeter apart. The work done in bringing them closer by 4 centimeter is, okay. So there are two charges Q1 and Q2 separated by R1, and you want them to be brought closer to a separation of R2. So clearly external work has to be done, and work done is equal to final potential energy minus initial potential energy. What is it? Final potential energy is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R2 minus initial potential energy is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R1. So if you simplify it further, what do we get? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 into 1 by R2 minus 1 by R1. That is the potential energy or change in potential energy, and we can simplify it further. 9 into 10 to the power of 9 into Q1 Q2, 12 into 10 to the power of minus 6, and this is 18 into 10 to the power of minus 6, 1 by R2. So what is that? 1 by, what is the initial separation? 10 centimeter. And what is the final separation? They are brought closer by 4 centimeter, which means the final separation is 10 minus 4, that is 6 centimeter. We can simplify it further, and it gives you 13 joules. So C is our correct choice. Next one. The electric flux through a hemisphere of radius r placed in a uniform electric field of intensity E parallel to the axis of the circular plane is, okay. We can show the construction like this. This is a hemisphere, okay, and it says electric field is parallel to the axis of its circular plane. So this is a circular plane and this is the axis of the circular plane, and there is a uniform electric field like this. He says what is the flux through it? Clearly the flux through this is same as flux through the curved surface, because there is no flat surface, right? I am considering it as a bowl, an open structure, not a closed structure. It's a hemisphere, not a solid hemisphere. It's an open one. It's something like a bowl. So if I consider this, the flux is flux over the curved surface. The flux over the curved surface is nothing but E A cos theta. The electric field is uniform everywhere. But is that theta same at all the points? No. For example, if I consider the area vector for different parts of this hemisphere, they are all different in direction. However, if you take this A cos theta, that means I take the component of every A. What do I get? I get something like this. This A cos theta happens to be the perpendicular component of the curved surface. That means the part which is perpendicular to the axis. But you know, this A perpendicular refers to the area of the circular part. It refers to area of the circular part. Thus, the flux is equal to E into area of the circular part. But area of the circular part is pi into r square, and therefore the flux is E into pi r square. So, the flux over the hemispherical bowl is E into pi r square. It is same as flux over the plane surface, remember. Next one. Two identical metal balls with charges plus 2q and minus q are separated by some distance and exert a force F on each other. They are joined by a conducting wire which is then removed. The force between them will be, okay. So, the construction is here. This is one conductor and this is the other conductor. They carry charges plus 2q and minus q. Their radii are same, r each. And the force between them is F, initial force is F. And later they are joined and the conducting wire is removed. When these two are joined, the net charge on the system happens to be 2q minus q, that is q, and that gets shared equally, q divided by 2 each. The net charge is 2q minus q, that is q. Q on each conductor means q by 2, q by 2. So, what is the final force? This is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2q into q divided by, say, some distance d square, and the final force happens to be 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by 2 into q by 2 divided by same separation square. So, if we simplify it further, what do we get? F2 divided by F1. But you notice this is nothing but 1 divided by 8. Yes, 1 divided by 8. Or F2 is equal to F1 divided by 8 or F divided by 8. So, the force between them becomes 1 by 8 times the initial force. D is our correct choice. Next one. The electric field at a point at a distance r from an electric dipole is proportional to. The electric field due to a dipole. Suppose I consider a dipole minus q and plus q, and 2L is the dipole separation and the point is located at an angle theta at a distance r. Then the electric field at that point is given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught p by r cube into square root of 1 plus 3 cos square theta. 1 plus 3 cos square theta. And if you consider the direction, it subtends an angle alpha which is given by tan alpha is equal to half tan theta. Thus, the electric field is inversely proportional to cube of this distance. So, for a short dipole, E is proportional to 1 by r cube. C is the correct choice. Example 12. The electric intensity due to a dipole of length 10 centimeter and having a charge of 500 microcoulomb at a point on the axis at a distance of 20 centimeter from one of the charges in air is. There is a dipole minus q plus q and 2L is the dipole length, and the question is, what is the electric field at a distance of 20 centimeter on the axis? So, the point is here. The electric field at a point on the axis of a dipole, you notice that this distance 20 centimeter is not a far off distance. So we can't use the short dipole formula. We have to consider the actual formula for the dipole field. That is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into 2 PR divided by R square minus A square to the power R divided by R square minus A square to the power of 2. R square minus A square to the power of 2. I'll write again 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2 PR R square minus A square whole square. That's right. What is that R? R is this distance, and here we can take the separation as 2a. Thus, this becomes 9 into 10 to the power of 9 into 2 into dipole moment is charge into charge separation 0.1, because the separation is 10 centimeter or dipole length is 10 centimeter, that's 0.1, and this is at a distance of 0.2 meters whole divided by R square. What is that? 20 centimeter 0. So if you look at this is 0.25, this distance R, this is 0.2 and this is 0.05. So the total separation is 0.25 centimeter or rather meter. So 0.25, 0.25 square minus 0.05 square whole square. And upon simplification, you get this as 6.25 into 10 to the power of 7 Newton per Coulomb. So the electric field is 6.25 into 10 to the power of 7 Newton per Coulomb. A is our correct choice. Now some problems on capacitors. First one. Consider a parallel plate capacitor having plates of unequal area. When a battery supplies charges plus Q1 and minus Q2 to the two plates, how are they related? Okay. So if you consider the plates of a parallel plate capacitor, this is given plus Q1 and this is given minus Q2. And remember, this is because of the battery connected to the plates. Now, the charges supplied by the positive and the negative terminals of a battery are always equal and opposite. So, magnitude wise Q1 and Q2 are equal. But one plate gets positive charge, the other plate gets negative charge. Therefore, we can write Q1 magnitude is equal to minus Q2. So, the charges are equal. So, value of Q1 and that of Q2 are equal to each other. Next one. In a capacitor of 20 microfarad, the distance between the plates is 2 millimeter. If a dielectric slab of width 1 millimeter and dielectric constant 2 is inserted between the plates, then the new capacitance is, okay. So, the initial capacitance is epsilon naught A divided by D, while the final capacitance is how much? Epsilon naught A divided by D minus T plus T divided by K. You may wish to recall this. The plate separation is D and you have inserted a dielectric slab of width T, dielectric constant being K. So, if I substitute here, what is it going to be? This is nothing but epsilon naught A divided by D minus, this is D by 2 plus T is 2 divided by, what is that? T is D by 2 divided by, this is also 2. So, this is epsilon naught A divided by D by 2 plus d by 4 epsilon naught a divided by, it further simplifies to 2 divided by 3 epsilon naught a divided by d. That's right. So finally 2 by 3 times, that is nothing but two by 3 times epsilon naught a, right? And if I simplify it further, it becomes 4 by 3 times, yeah, into 2 divided by d epsilon naught a divided by d. But this is the initial capacitance. You know the initial capacitance. Initial capacitance is how much? That is 20 microfarad. So this is nothing but 80 by 3 microfarad. But you know the value of 80 by 3. 80 by 3 is 26.6. So the capacitance is 26.6 microfarad. Example 15. In how many ways one can arrange 3 identical capacitors taking either 1 or 2 or 3 capacitors together to obtain distinct effective capacitors? So let us look at all the possibilities here. I can take 1 or I can take 2 in series, or I can take 2 in parallel, right? This is the second one, third one, and I can take all the 3 in series, or I can take all the 3 in parallel. And then what can I do? I can take one capacitor and the other 2 can be connected in parallel, or I can take these 2 capacitors in series and I can put another in parallel. So these are all the possible combinations. These are all the possible combinations, right? So if you look at this combination, how many combinations are possible? 7 combinations are possible. So these are all the possible combinations of 3 capacitors giving rise to distinct values. So 7 combinations are possible. And as a practice, you can find out the capacitance of each of the systems also. Next one. A parallel plate air capacitor has a capacitance C. When it is half filled with a dielectric, the percentage increase in the capacitance will be. Okay. This is the construction. Its capacitance is C. Now, from this, you have the system. We are going to fill it up with dielectric of dielectric constant 2, and it is half filled. Now, this arrangement is equivalent to something like this. So let's find out the capacitance of this arrangement. I'll call it as C1, I'll call it as C2. C1 and C2 are connected in parallel. So what is C1? C1 is equal to epsilon naught A by 2 into dielectric constant is 2 divided by D. That is epsilon naught A divided by D, same as C, because initially it is epsilon naught A divided by D. C2 is epsilon naught A by 2 divided by D, that is the same as epsilon naught A divided by 2D or C by 2. How are they connected? They are connected in parallel. Therefore, the equivalent capacitance is C1 plus C2. C plus C by 2, 3C divided by 2. So, the effective capacitance of this arrangement or the new capacitance is 3C divided by 2. Therefore, the percentage change is delta C divided by C, 3C divided by 2 minus C divided by C, or C by 2 divided by C, or this corresponds to 50%. So, the capacitance increases by 50%. Next one, a finite ladder is constructed by connecting several sections of 3 microfarad, 6 microfarad capacitor combinations as shown. The value of C such that the equivalent capacitance of the ladder between the points A and B becomes independent of the number of sections in between is. Okay. So the construction can be shown here. This is 6 and each one of them are 6 microfarad. This is C and you got 3 microfarad here and another 3, another 3 and so on, and this is A, this is B. These are all 3 microfarad each. The question is, what is the value of C such that it becomes independent of the number of sections? It becomes independent of the number of sections. So now let us assume that it goes up to infinity. As you can notice, it goes up to infinity. That means it is independent of the number of sections. So I am going to consider it like this. This is 3 microfarad, this is 6 microfarad, and by the repeated addition of this segment I can generate this network, ladder network, by repeated addition. Suppose the equivalent capacitance is X, let the equivalent capacitance be X. So then I can retain this part and the rest of the segment can be replaced by its equivalent capacitance. On what basis? It is simple, because it is an infinite ladder network, whether you remove one segment or add one segment does not matter. So I am removing the first segment and the rest of the segment looks like the original one. So this is what I have. Between A and B, the equivalent capacitance that I want to find out is X, and the first segment has the following parts: 3, 6 and X. 6 and X are connected in parallel, so I have 6X divided by 6 plus X, and another 3 is connected in parallel, and this is A, this is B with X in between. That is the equivalent capacitance. So if I simplify it further, I should write X is equal to 3 plus 6X divided by 6 plus X. Right? So I can simplify it further. I get quadratic as x square minus 3x minus 18 is equal to 0. And upon simplification I get x is equal to 6 microfarad. That is the equivalent capacitance. That is the value of C that should be connected. That means if I connect a capacitor of 6 microfarad, then it becomes independent of the number of segments. So if I connect an equivalent capacitance at that point or at the end, then the number of segments does not matter. So 6 microfarad is the answer. 18. In the given circuit, a charge of 80 microcoulomb is given to the upper plate of the 4 microfarad capacitor. Then in steady state, the charge on the upper plate of the 3 microfarad capacitor is. Okay. The question is, upper plate of 3 microfarad capacitor. So this is what I am looking for. Let us draw the construction here. This is grounded and this is here, and this is 4 microfarad capacitor, this is 2 microfarad capacitor, this is 3 microfarad capacitor, and we have given a charge of 80 microcoulomb to the top. Then in steady state the charge on the upper plate is okay. So if you notice, 80 microcoulomb is the charge on this plate, so clearly it must be minus 80 here. So 80 that is, and you have got minus 80 microcoulomb, which means that this being 4 microfarad capacitor, the potential difference across the plates must be 20 volts. Correct? It must be 20 volts. And if you look at these two which are connected in parallel, 2 and 3 in parallel is 5. So this is 5 microfarad. What is the potential difference across this? If I calculate that potential difference, I will have the answer, isn't it? So what is that equal to? In series combination, you notice that these two are actually connected in series now. In series combination, potentials divide in the inverse ratio of capacitors. So if I call the potential difference across this as V, 20 divided by V should be 5 by 4. So 20 divided by V should be 5 by 4, or V is equal to 80 divided by 5, that is 16. So potential difference across this is 16 volts, which means that the potential difference across 2 microfarad is 16, across 3 microfarad also it is 16. So across 3 microfarad capacitor, the potential difference is 16 volts. So I know the potential difference, I know the capacitance. Now it is pretty easy to calculate the charge. What is that? Plus 48 microcoulomb minus 48 microcoulomb. Thus the charge on the top plate of the 3 microfarad capacitor is plus 48 microcoulomb. So the answer is plus 48. You can also answer this in a slightly different way. How? Look at this. This is the arrangement. Because the top capacitor gets 80 microcoulomb, this entire arrangement should also get 80 microcoulomb, because these two which are actually connected in parallel is in series with the top. In parallel combination, charges divide in the ratio of the capacitances. What are the capacitances here? 2 microfarad and 3 microfarad. So now I want 80 to be divided in the ratio 2:3. So how to divide 80 in the ratio 2:3? So is it 32 and 48? Is that correct? You can check it for yourself. If I divide 80 in the ratio 2:3, I get 32 and 48. And thus the charge on the top plate happens to be 48, that is 48 microcoulomb. So the answer is the charge on this plate happens to be 48 microcoulomb. Next one. Two metallic spheres of radii 1 cm and 2 cm are given charges of 10 to the power of minus 2 coulomb and 5 into 10 to the power of minus 2 coulomb respectively. If they are connected by a conducting wire, the final charge on the smaller sphere is okay. So there are two conductors, their radii are 1 cm and 2 cm respectively, and they carry charges 10 to the power of minus 2 coulomb and 5 into 10 to the power of minus 2 coulomb, and they are going to be connected, the final charge on this one. To calculate the final charge, I will consider the idea of charge is equal to C into common potential. So if I know the common potential, I can calculate it. How to find out the common potential? Common potential is Q1 plus Q2 divided by C1 plus C2. What is that Q1 plus Q2? Q1 is 10 to the power of minus 2 plus Q2 is 5 into 10 to the power of minus 2 whole divided by C1 plus C2. Now let us look at this. C1 is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught R. That's right. And I can write it as C. C2 is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught into 2R, that is 2C. So this becomes C plus 2C, that is 3C. So 6 into 10 to the power of minus 2 divided by 3C. Or what do we have? This is 2 into 10 to the power of minus 2 divided by C. C is 4 pi epsilon naught R. Now it is easy to substitute. What is the value of R? R is the radius of the first conductor. So you can substitute and simplify, and upon simplification we get the answer as 2 into 10 to the power of minus 2 coulombs. So the charge on the smaller sphere becomes 2 into 10 to the power of minus 2 coulombs. Next one. A condenser of capacity C1 is charged to a potential V. The electrostatic energy stored in it is U. It is connected to another uncharged condenser of capacity C2 in parallel. The energy dissipated in this process is, okay, initial energy is equal to half C1 V square. Final energy is half C equivalent and V common square. That is equal to half C1 plus C2, and common potential is C1 V1 plus C2 V2 divided by C1 plus C2. That is C1 V plus 0 divided by C1 plus C2 whole square. That is nothing but half C1 V1 square, C1 V1 square, that is C1 square V square divided by C1 plus C2. One set of C1 plus C2 cancels. Therefore, the loss in the energy is equal to half C1 V square minus half C1 square V square divided by C1 plus C2. You can simplify it to get the answer as C2 divided by C1 plus C2 into initial energy, that is U. This is the loss in the energy, that is the energy dissipated. A is our correct choice. Next one. A conducting sphere of radius 10 cm is charged to 10 microcoulomb. Another uncharged sphere of radius 20 cm is allowed to touch it for some time. After that, if the spheres are separated, the surface charge density of the spheres will be in the ratio. Okay. There is a conducting sphere whose size is 10 cm and it is charged to 10 microcoulomb. Another of radius 20 centimeter, I will call it as R2, which is uncharged, is brought in contact. Now the question is, what is the surface charge density? Okay, surface charge density is charge per unit area. So now to find out the final charges on them, I will calculate the common potential, which is C1 V1 Q1 divided by C1 plus C2. That is C plus 2C, I will write as Q1, that is Q divided by 3C. Why 2C? Because its radius is twice. So this is the common potential. Therefore, the final charges are Q1 dash is equal to common potential into its capacitance. So C into Q divided by 3C, that is nothing but Q by 3. Final charge on the second is its capacitance into common potential, that is nothing but 2 by 3 Q. Therefore, the surface charge densities sigma 1 dash divided by sigma 2 dash are charge per unit area Q by 3 whole divided by A divided by 2Q by 3 whole divided by 4A. Why 4A? Because its radius is twice. That is nothing but 2 divided by 1. Therefore, the surface charge densities are in the ratio 2:1. Example 22. In the given circuit, if point C is connected to the earth and a potential of plus 80 volts is given to point A, the potential at point B is okay. So the construction can be shown here. 3 microfarad and you got 6 microfarad and another 6 microfarad connected in series, and then another 6 microfarad connected across the entire setup in parallel, and this is at 0 volts as it is connected to ground. This is given a potential difference of or potential of 80 volts. Now this is equivalent to the following construction. This is 3 microfarad. This point is B, by the way. This is point B. And what is the capacitance of this entire setup? It is easy to find out. 6 and 6 are in series, so 3. 3 and 6 are in parallel, that is 2. So 2 microfarad. Now, in series combination, potentials divide in the inverse ratio of the capacitances. So 80 volts should be divided in the ratio 2:3. Correct? So 80 volts should be divided in the ratio 2:3. So how do I do that? I'm sorry, this is not 2 microfarad, that is actually 9 microfarad, isn't it? So 6 and 6 in series gives you 3. 3 and 6 are in parallel. My fault, this is 9 microfarad. So now, if V1 and V2 are the potential differences, V1 by V2 should be equal to, what is that? 9:3 or 3:1. So I need to divide it in that ratio. So I will divide 80 volts into 4 parts, which means 20 is each part. So 20 into 3 is 60, 60 and 20. Therefore, this across this 3 microfarad, there is 60 volt. Across 9 microfarad, what is it? It is 20 volts. This is 80 volts and this is 0. And the point B is here. So, this is 80 volts and the potential drops by 60. Correct? Therefore, what is the potential over there? So, the potential, you can show it again, 0, and this is at 80 volts. The potential decreases by 20 volts as you cross this, 60 volts as you cross this. Therefore, the potential at point B is equal to 80 minus 60, that is 20. So, 80 volts minus 60 volt and 20 volts. So, the potential at point B is 20 volts. Okay, so with that problem, we have come to the end of this discussion. Dear children, please practice these problems, get a good grip on the concepts and remember the equations. All the best.